Welcome to another episode of the Way of BJJ podcast. As always, due to strong language, inappropriate analogies, please do not listen to this around your kids. Now let's get to the podcast. All right, so we'll wait for Kirik to
walk down the stairs, all the radio stations. And he walks in the room.
You know, I'm keeping all this in the podcast.
That's okay. Right? I listen to those radio shows. I'm old enough that, when we were kids, we only had 2 TV channels.
Two.
Wow.
So how do you choose which one to watch?
Whichever one was on the TV, because you had to get up to change the channels.
Right. And you have to tune to find the
Sometimes,
frequency and all that kind of shit.
When I was a little kid, we didn't have cable.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what's So you know this guy is old. That's when he's talking about shit like that. So welcome back to another episode of the Way of BJJ podcast. And this interview or this conversation is long overdue, man. You know, I've been wanting to talk to Max, which is a longtime buddy, and he also is the person that gave me my purple belt.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm eternally grateful for all the training and all that.
You deserved it.
I know I don't deserve it now, but back then I was quite the stud. Not anymore, but oh man. So I think when I first met you, you were like 38 years old or somewhere around there, I believe, because I was back in.
You were just a young, skinny little boy.
I know I was. I was. Dude, you know how Facebook like have these memories, right?
Yeah.
There's a memory from 13 years ago. Then I look at myself. Oh wow. Holy crap! I look like.
I look at myself from 13 years ago, and my passport photo. It's identical.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's identical.
No, that means you have a reverse aging, right?
I mean, I don't know if it's reverse aging, but I definitely feel like, people say, I'm 52 years old, so, and I'm still doing jiu-jitsu. I'm still doing the things that I like to do, and I feel like aging is a responsibility.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
So as a 52-year-old, there would be no shame in me. Well, there may be shame to myself because of the way I think, but to the society, if we think about 20 years ago, 30 years ago, what 52 meant. 52 was close to retirement. You usually had growing children, and you were definitely, I would say,
end of the line, bro.
99% of the population, at least in North America, were out of shape and looked old. And so what is that responsibility? Well, I think there's a responsibility to society to keep yourself healthy, right? There's a responsibility that if you do have children, I have 11-year-olds, 2 11-year-olds, there's a responsibility to them to stay healthy, to stay active, to stay mentally fit. And there's a responsibility to myself and society in general to take care of myself.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to be a burden on the medical system. I don't want to be a burden on anyone else. So there's simple things that you can do to keep yourself healthy.
Yeah. But I also feel like, isn't it nice to not just feel like shit all the time?
Well, that's
right? Because everything you just said is 100% logical, right? We all know that it's rational, it's logical, it makes a lot of sense. But why is this so difficult for most people? Because most people in their 50s are the exact opposite of what you described, right? You know, they are out of shape. They have really shitty lifestyles, right? And then they are blaming this and that for all their all their health issues, right? And not pointing.
Well, I think the key word there is the key word there is they're blaming. They're blaming people. There's no blame. Every decision you make that decision. Maybe there's luck, maybe there's some people have privileges that other people don't have, but you need to decide how you're going to carry yourself. You can't, in jiu-jitsu, the most important thing about in jiu-jitsu is being able to keep yourself safe, being able to control your own body. You can't control someone else if you can't control your own body. So if you can't if you can't do a forward roll with some sort of competency, how am I going to do that with a person on top of me?
Right, right. Yeah,
Right?
yeah. So just kind of, because again, it's on brand for our podcast to be highly unfocused, unfiltered, and everything. But I still want to make sure our listeners know who you are and why we're talking about, why we're having this conversation today, right? So again, Max, you are a second degree black belt now, right?
Yeah, second degree black
second degree
belt.
black belt, and because I remember when I was talking to you maybe 8 or 9 years ago, when you were in your 40s, right? I think there was at one point you thought about quitting jiu-jitsu because your body was so banged up. You have this injury, that injury, the hips. I remember, right? Hips, shoulders, maybe lower back a little bit. I forgot what it was, but it was
No,
bad enough for
they're all cousins.
right. It was bad enough for you to actually seriously contemplating about is doing jiu-jitsu worth it,
Yeah.
right? So, but then that's when gradually I see, oh wow, Max is still training. Well, he's working on this and that. Oh, he got his black belt. Oh man, and then I physically can see you getting fitter and fitter and fitter, throughout the year because
Yeah.
we don't get to hang out as much as we
No.
would like to, right? But every time I see your updates on Facebook and Instagram, then I can clearly see that whatever you're doing is really working. So that's why I want to talk about that today. Like what was it like
I think the
back then?
approach, well, I've been doing jiu-jitsu now for, I guess, maybe 30 years. Well, I did Japanese jiu-jitsu. I did lots of martial arts. I've been doing martial arts in general since I was 13 years old, right? I've done kung fu, karate, taekwondo, different forms of Filipino martial arts, Indonesian martial arts. Um, I worked nightclub security on and off for 2 decades. And the thing about jujitsu is sort of, like I said, I think the 40s maybe was the turning point where that was when I couldn't rely on jujitsu as a form of exercise. So up until that point, I was also working physical. I was an arborist, so I was climbing trees all day long, and a tremendously physical job, right? And when I stopped doing that, I lost a lot of mobility and physical training that I didn't know I was doing. I didn't really realize that, picking up logs and carrying them to the truck day in and day out was priming my body for jiu-jitsu, right? It was giving me a strength where when when I was on the mat, people were like, "Oh wow, you're so strong," right? You know, and then sometimes that used to piss me off because I'd also think, well, okay, well, I'm also doing technique, right?
At the underhanded compliment, right?
There's that the jiu-jitsu is full of that because people don't want to, there's leave the ego out the door is a novel idea, but nobody leaves the ego at the door. It's not part of. It's hard to, fight someone if you're just leaving the ego at the door. Then you're just going to let them beat you up. Well, what's the point, right? So anyways, I was then once I stopped doing jujitsu, all of a sudden, or to stop doing this physical labor every day, I started packing on the weight, right? And then I do more jujitsu, and then I try to do other exercises. I'd try running, but then it would hurt my knees. I would try doing different things, and they just didn't work, right? And then my hips started going all crazy on me, and I spent money on physio, IMS, every single therapy you could think of, because I was looking for this magic pill. I was looking for something externally to fix me, when the answer all along was inside. You have to fix yourself, right? You have to say, okay, this is the damage. It's caused by this. I'm going to start reading about it. I'm going to start talking to people about it. I'm going to start figuring out how to fix it. And it probably took me about 3 to 4 years of applying different techniques until I started finding what worked for me and probably most people. And that's combining the two. So you want to do jujitsu, right? You're older, you want to do jujitsu. But you need to understand that jujitsu is going to be hard on the body. It's going to be hard on the shoulders, it's going to be hard on the hips, it's going to be hard on the back. So we need to prime these parts of our body to be able to take the punishment. So doing things like, using the clubs, looking into something that there's a reason why something like this has been around for 4,000 years.
Right. Yeah. So people who's only listening to the audio, right? We have some what do you call these? These are like clubs, right?
Wooden
Clubs,
clubs, the
right?
technical word for this would be mudgar. You
Mudgar.
might hear it in Persian circles as a Persian meal, right? Which is a little different, but roughly the same idea. So anyways, there's this, you start looking at these methods, and then you have to know whatever the method may be. Maybe this isn't the answer for everybody,
Right.
right? But I guarantee the answer is out there for you. Lately, I work with a lot of people that are considerably younger than me, like by 20, 25 years. And I've heard things like, oh, the doctor has diagnosed me with arthritis. Well, what are you going to do for that? Well, they gave me these 2 medications, told me not to exercise. I'm like, wow, find a new doctor quick, right?
Yeah. Did you
So,
listen to the episode where I talked to Patrick about his concussion?
yeah,
It's very similar, isn't
it's
it?
very similar.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went through some of the same thing that Patrick had gone through, right? I got hit by a car when I was 17 years old. They almost amputated this leg.
Yeah. You can see a scar
Right?
right
They have
here.
missing muscle here. It's gone. They had to rebuild my leg and my knee using bones out of my hip. And then I had to rebuild from that. That was easy. I was 17 years old. But
Indestructible.
yeah, I was indestructible. I had people, take me, carry me down the stairs of the gym, bring me weights, and I'm riding my bike. And that was easier to overcome than aging, right? Because my body was on my side. I'm producing, a shit ton of testosterone. Um, I'm healing still, I still have that teenage blood, right? I'm just like, healing. And within a few years, I was back to like doing everything that I could ever do, and 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 feeling great. But what was happening there is I was developing these compensations throughout my body. So working heavy labor was good for physical strength, but it was bad for aging because what it was doing is it was putting the stress on different parts of my body. And those parts of my body were pulling other parts of my body out of alignment. And then all of a sudden, when I started getting older, and maybe it was stopped doing the tree work, I'm not sure. But when I was doing jiu-jitsu, that was when I was having those horrible hip pains. And nothing was curing it. So again, stopping to figure it out. It wasn't really, it would come and it would go, and I would try to figure things out. And I've been to every single professional that you could think of, kinesiologists, physiotherapists, everyone. Nothing. Nothing. Then one conversation on Instagram, and this is the beauty of, I think this is the beautiful part about social media, right? Is that this one little conversation on Instagram, a comment about hip mobility to someone named Steve Cotter, who didn't know who it was at the time. I just saw a video of him talking about it. Somehow it ended up in my feed. I'm not sure how. He reached back to me and said, hey, my name's Steve Cotter. I'm the president and founder of the International Kettlebell Fitness Foundation. I teach people all over the world. I can help you. I'm like, I had kettlebells and I had been doing kettlebell work, but I didn't really know, I didn't really know exactly what to do with it. So I said, okay, fine. Signed up for his course, took his course, became a certified kettlebell instructor under him, and then started really looking at the mechanics of the hip, and all of a sudden figuring out what went wrong. What went wrong? What's going wrong with my body, right? Let's fix it. So then dialing back, coming up with the exercises, and then it was just this evolution of exercises and building upon them that all of a sudden I just found myself getting smarter about how to do it, getting fitter, and figuring out how to heal myself, right?
Okay, so So if it's so it sounds like what you're saying is by learning the proper maybe I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but by learning these exercises, so you know what a proper hip biomechanic is gonna look like, you can kind of reverse engineer a little bit and
I
see
think
what your compensation pattern was like and try to
I
fix it.
think
Is that,
there's
is that
I think there's that, and I mean definitely a physiotherapist is going to tell me what I was doing wrong,
right?
right? And but whatever they were doing to fix it wasn't helping me. The exercises they were giving me weren't helping me. Maybe because they lacked the ability to, you know, read somebody's mind. Right? They're not going to get inside your body and know it. But then once you entrust yourself with that knowledge, so once you learn that mind muscle connection and start feeling how to fix it, then you can start to work
Okay,
on it.
okay.
I would say the best thing is probably avoiding this in the first place,
Right.
right? Like, you know, teaching young athletes how to take care of themselves, right? I mean, it was
It's
never
so hard though. You can impart all the wisdom and experience you want.
exactly.
They won't listen.
They won't listen. They're smarter than you. They're better than you. You're, you know, whatever.
You're just a washed up has been, right? You know?
Yeah. But for me, that was my journey. And really my take home message with that is I'm not blaming anyone for that. I'm not expecting somebody to fix me. I'm not expecting to pay, you know, $120 a session for somebody to fix me. No. I decided to do it myself and I fixed myself, and I'll continue to do that, and I'll continue to you know, try to improve my fitness, try to improve my jiu-jitsu. My jiu-jitsu has changed dramatically, like we talked about earlier. I don't care about winning when I do jiu-jitsu. I don't care about tapping you out. I don't care about getting tapped out. I don't want to get tapped out, because then that will mean that I've somehow, the system is broken down and I've lost control, right? And maybe that is the best thing about jiu-jitsu. It's about staying in control, right? It's not about, oh, I see that submission, I'm going to jump for the submission at all costs. Great. We all do it. We've all done it. You landed the submission. You broke your training partner's foot. You know, I saw someone's foot get broken the other day.
Oh, damn.
Right? We've all hurt people.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? My goal now is not to hurt people. It's maybe to control people. When you and I rolled, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I knew you had, you know, different injuries, different things. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not trying to, you know, tap you out. I'm just trying to control you.
Right.
Right? Oh, you know, eventually that will lead to a submission if that's the game we want to play, right? If we're in a tournament, right? If we're on the street, right? My jiu-jitsu is rooted in martial arts. Like I often tell my story that it's warrior full circle to teacher to healer, right? And I think that's the journey that as a martial artist you want to be on. I learned jiu-jitsu because I wanted to get better at fighting. I was working at nightclubs. I wanted to know something better. I knew there was something better. I learned when I was a kid, there was our school janitor, Mr. McClarty, and his son is still my friend to this very day, was actually my football coach as well, Coach McClarty. His dad was the high school janitor. His dad was a notable catch wrestler, learned in Japan all these techniques, learned a sleeper move, sleeper choke, taught us what I would then learn to be the rear naked choke, taught us this move, taught us some neck cranks, taught us some catch wrestling moves.
Shouldn't he be the school security instead?
Well, that just didn't happen back then. I mean, he was the school janitor. He had a great job. He took care of his family, and because you know, catch wrestling, I think didn't pay the bills, right? And neither did any kind of wrestling.
Yeah.
And so I knew this existed, but living in Canada, not having exposure to wrestling like kids in the United States, um, it blew my mind, right? And so being a martial artist, I thought, you know, even as a kid, you know, doing kung fu, learning different things, you know, did full contact tournaments when I was like 14 years old. I went in a bunch of full contact tournaments. I always knew that grappling was something I just didn't know how to apply it because I'd never done it, right? And then it was that one time I was showing jiu-jitsu. It was Japanese jiu-jitsu, and I was like, wow. So I went full head into it and literally changed the way I thought about fighting, right? Now I was able to, working in the nightclubs, I was able just to like take these big dudes that were, you know, drunk and throwing punches, and I would just put them to sleep. And believe me, if you knew jiu-jitsu in 1998 and you're working in a nightclub in downtown Vancouver like I was, jiu-jitsu was an honest to God superpower. It still is to this very day, but it was, you know, you know, hocus pocus magic, right? They would come at me, that move that I was showing,
Get into the back.
yeah,
That one.
that one, it would just be like, I was working at this one club called the Love Affair, and it was a really cool club. It was a rave club, and you know, people were generally, you know, dancing on ecstasy. All these kids, you know, with glow sticks hanging out of their mouths in various places, and
1998.
yeah,
You were just a kid back then too.
yeah, yeah. But I had already, you know, traveled. I had worked in bars in other countries. I like wasn't a kid like this, right? And And so, yeah, I was 28 years old when it's, you know, that's not 19. There's a big
Okay,
difference,
yeah.
right? So, for some reason, a lot of the Navy guys would come into town and they would come to this bar. I don't know why, what attracted them to this bar, but you know, it was this ecstasy sort of rave crowd mixed with this rowdy, you know, Navy crowd, and I would literally just play a game in my head where it was how quick you would go to sleep after you touched me.
Man, that reminds me of, have you seen the movie with Denzel Washington called the Equalizer?
No.
No, that's pretty much what he does.
Really?
Right? He would like map out the exact sequences that's gonna be in his head, and then he
I
would
saw
set
it.
then he would set
Yeah.
a timer on his stopwatch, and then he would just kill everybody within like the 10 seconds that he
Well,
planned.
this was long before that movie was out. I definitely did that. And this one particular time, I remember, I think there was about five guys, and I was telling them to calm down, and they weren't, you know, and I was just trying to push them off into the corner so they could just do what they wanted to do and not
Bother
affect
anybody, yeah.
these kids. Well, Young Guns, this Tim, he was this young bouncer, tall guy. He was doing some jujitsu with us too. Probably, I think maybe he was 19 or maybe 20 at the most, right? Young Guns, we called him because he was just full of it, right? And he wasn't gonna have it. I was okay. I gotta make sure these kids know who I am and that they don't. These Navy guys listen to me. So he's in there. And the next thing you know, he's scrapping them. They're scrapping. I walk in there and I'm just putting them to sleep. One, two, three. I put three guys to sleep, right? He grabs this one guy, grabs him by the neck, you know, fighting him. They're fighting. I turn around. The guy gets loose. The guy's over here. Now he's fighting another guy. Now he's fighting someone else, right? Comes around, fights Johnny at the door. Johnny kicks him out. He somehow gets back in to the club, still wanting to fight. I go up to him, put him to sleep. He wakes up and he apologizes. So this is something that jiu-jitsu does, is it gives you the ability to neutralize the situation, right? Without using this extra external aggressive force, right? You can take someone and you can put them to sleep, right? 9 times out of 10, they'll hit the reset, they'll wake up, and they'll be fine. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they wake up in a worse place, and you might have to try it again, put them back. Sometimes it goes to the extreme, and I don't know if other Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners have seen this. I've seen this in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a few times, and I've seen it in the clubs a few times. They'll literally go into the fetal position and start sucking their thumb. Very embarrassing.
I've
for
never
them.
seen that.
I've seen it in Jiu-Jitsu a few times.
Oh wow.
Right.
Well, we need to catch it on video next time it happens.
It's usually when they go out really, really fast.
Hey, that's why I refuse to get put to sleep because I'm gonna be one of those guys.
It's just that reset. It just puts you back to that,
yeah.
to the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
But I like what you just said because I think people don't think about this, right? Because there's also retaliation and revenge after the fact, right? Let's say if you handle them with brutality, right? And then you seriously injure somebody, and then who's gonna guarantee, one day you're not gonna walk down the street and somebody stabs you from behind, right? Just
Exactly.
because they get so pissed off, right?
Yeah.
So by jiu-jitsu, you do it in a way where you're like, hey, we're cool.
You do it respectfully,
Yeah.
right? I believe that one of the things, I mean, there's always this, I've heard you guys talk about it on your podcast before. I see it online all the time, and it's like, jiu-jitsu is not good for self-defense. I seen a video just recently where a karate guy entered a tournament.
Yeah, the Jesse,
Yeah.
the famous dude. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Then I'm watching that, and I'm like,
I think he kind of did it as a bit tongue-in-cheek, though, I think.
tongue-in-cheek, but also disrespectfully. I think it was disrespectful because there's rules of engagement.
Right.
So one thing I learned, which isn't practiced in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that much now, it was back when I first learned it, and definitely it was in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, where you learn Jiu-Jitsu. You learn Jiu-Jitsu. You learn kick, punch, throw, grapple. That's Jiu-Jitsu, right? Then you learn to fight the rules of engagement, right? I might be in a red zone somewhere where it doesn't matter if I can break someone's neck. I can walk away scot-free. If I don't, I'm going to die. They're going to kill me. They're going to stab me. They're going to shoot me, right? Okay, there's no rules of engagement. Then it's full force. Then we're using everything we have to neutralize that threat. And it's not going to be, I'm not going to think about putting him to sleep. I'm going to think about ending it now as fast as I possibly can and going away. I'm in a first world country. I have a lot of rules. I have laws. I'm not even allowed to defend myself legally if I have intent on injuring that person, right? So everyone can use all these words, better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6, all these different things, until you're going to go to prison for the rest of your life for snapping somebody's neck.
Right.
Because you lost your temper in a bar or whatever.
Right.
Right? There's that recent stabbing where the person told someone to put their cigarette out and the guy pulled out a knife and stabbed him to
Yeah,
death.
over that, man. That's fucking ridiculous,
So that's why I think is jiu-jitsu good for self-defense? Absolutely, jiu-jitsu is good for self-defense. Is modern day sport jiu-jitsu good for self-defense? Not if that's all you do. No. Why would it be? Right? If all I learn how to do is punch someone in the face like a boxer, is that good for self-defense? Kind of, but it's also going to get me in a whole lot of trouble, right? And it's good for one particular part of self-defense. Martial arts in history are regionally based.
Right.
So is Bruce Lee the toughest guy in the world?
No, probably
No. Could he beat up a lot of other 130-pound guys
Sure.
in an alley where he had an unlimited amount of room to run and do all these things? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was regionally based. They had that form of kung fu was for a certain sort of thing, right? Sword fighting, regionally based for certain sort of thing. There's this, argument that, the samurai was a better swordsman than an English knight. obviously they'll never get to prove it.
Right.
Two completely different regionally based forms of warfare.
Right. Right. And different rules of engagement too.
Different rules of engagement.
Even
right?
though they fight to the death, there are still rules.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. So is jiu-jitsu good for self-defense? Absolutely. It's probably one of the best martial arts for self-defense. Because one of the things that we're learning is not only are we being very physically fit, right? You know, we talk about injuries and stuff, but I mean, you have to train for that, right? But as far as is it good for self-defense? It's I think probably the best martial arts for self-defense because it gives you an awareness in space and time that almost no other martial art can give you. It allows you to know exactly where your body is and exactly where that other person's body is instantly. If we're grappling, and as you did today, quite nobly, I might add, I kept playing your wrists,
Yes.
right? It's again, it's break your wrists. But anytime I saw that you had an open hand, I went after that wrist wherever I could, right? We were standing up, we were down on the ground, wherever we could. And you knew exactly when I touched this, what was happening. You instantly knew where my elbow was. You knew where my body was. You knew exactly what was going on. You knew what you had to do to change that. When we were grappling there and I was on top of you and you were in turtle, I just know by the pressure on my chest exactly where your hips are, where your feet are, right? Where your arms are. When I grab over here and I go to move like this, I don't have to look over here to know that you're bracing out with your arm. I can feel it through your body,
Right.
right? That's something that is invaluable in self-defense, right? Someone grabs you from behind, right? Even if you only practice sport jiu-jitsu, right? But let's look at weaponizing that sport jiu-jitsu. So what we have to know is we definitely always recommend anyone that does jiu-jitsu, whether it's, they're a competitor and they want to compete, they have to think about it outside of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
They have to practice one. The butt scooter always gets this, bad rep in jiu-jitsu. But why do you see it in tournaments all the time? Because it's working right now in modern day sport jiu-jitsu. The rules of engagement are allowing that to work.
Right.
Right? Did you see them butt scooting in Pride when you were allowed to soccer kick someone's head off their shoulders?
No, you would be crazy to do
No.
that.
Did wrestling work in Pride?
Yes.
Did it work as good as the UFC?
I think it would. Yeah, I think it would.
No,
Did it?
'cause
No, because you can knee and elbow
And
to the head.
It
Yeah.
was a boxing ring. You would
Right.
fall out of the boxing
Right,
ring.
right.
You couldn't get pinned up against. So when people are like, "Oh, wrestling's the ultimate," wrestling's an awesome martial art, and I believe that it's under the umbrella of grappling, under the umbrella of this, jiu-jitsu, and that's why these people get so territorial about their jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, well, I do 10th Planet, I do this style, I do that style. This one works, that one doesn't work. No, and just learn jiu-jitsu. Learn why it works. Learn how the Steven Seagal gets a bad rap, right? Watch the beginning of Hard to Kill. See that heaven and earth. See that Aikido movement, how that push, that pull works. I was showing that choke there. There's a lot of Aikido in that, or there's a lot of Jiu-Jitsu in Aikido actually. That's the way it worked, right? Aikido comes from Jiu-Jitsu, but parts were taken out. Rules of engagement were established for Aikido, and it got watered down, and now it's, the majority of it is a little bit, questionable whether that is something you'd want to do if you're learning how to defend yourself,
You're being so nice about it.
right? But I do know that Aikido works, right?
You have to train it the right
But
way.
when it works,
Yeah.
you can call it jiu-jitsu
Right.
because it's jiu-jitsu, right? It's those big movements that work. It's that pushing, that pulling, that yielding force. It's the reason why a triangle choke works. It's the reason why a single leg works. It's all of this same sort of movements, right? But Maybe they just watered it down just a little bit too
Too
much.
much, yeah.
And sport jiu-jitsu, the same thing. It's getting watered down to where is it a combat martial art anymore? I still think it has merit, right? It's just limited as a self-defense martial art because you're not thinking about the same sorts of things.
Right, right. Yeah, so I think it's obvious, like today when we roll, right? Like it might look like I'm surviving in turtle and stuff, but that's because we're under sports jiu-jitsu kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
If we're on the streets, you would have killed me already, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I think
definitely.
that's very important to for us to think about, right?
And in my mind frame, right, I'm not worried about what you're thinking. Maybe you'll come off the mat and you'll be like, maybe the person will be like, oh, wow, I survived, 10 minutes with this black belt, or maybe I tapped this black belt out, right? Or whatever. Okay, great. That's a term way of thinking about it, right? And it will not, if you're thinking about competition, yeah, you want to tap people out, right? I want to survive, thrive, control with the least amount of effort possible,
Right.
right? I want to have you in turtle and using zero energy. I'm lying on you. Every time you move, I'm just shifting, right? I got your neck, I got your, I got the choke, I got this, I got that, I go for this, you block that. We're just having fun. We're having fun, right?
Thank God. I don't know, man. That's your definition of fun. I don't know if that I would describe that as fun, but
You know,
but it was fun jiu-jitsu, like,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and I think that's important. Would I won in a tournament? I think I might have won in a tournament, maybe on
Oh
points,
yeah, yeah. You would have
right?
scored left and right. Yeah.
But if this was on the street, right? We can't be that guy that says my jiu-jitsu only works on the street. Oh, you tap me out, but on the street I would kick your ass. No, no, you wouldn't, because if you kick my ass here, you want to kick my ass there,
Right.
right?
Right.
If I can control you here, and I can go for chokes, and you defend, and this and that, and I'm in control. Yeah, I definitely, if there's no rules, I can kick your ass, right? Right? I can be punching you in the liver. I can end you. And this was a learning curve for me. One of my very closest friends called me up, and he's better at jiu-jitsu than me. He's won world championships, and he's a master at sport jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu and martial artist. I'm not going to say his name right now, but I can tell you after. And we rolled, and I didn't see him for a little bit. And then the next time I saw him, I was like, I haven't seen you for a bit. You didn't come. He was coming to my morning classes and training with me and helping me with the students. He had his own school, but he would still come and train with me. And it was invaluable. And he said, well, you know what, man? You gave me a concussion. It's not the first. He goes, and he goes, it's not the first time, and I should have told you, but this time you actually gave me a concussion, and I had to go to the hospital, and I was having trouble sleeping and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, I felt terrible, right? I'm like, well, because I love him, right? He's my brother, and I'm like, oh, this is horrible. Like, how did I do it? And then he showed me, and I'm like, okay. I learned this particular move for the street. I toned it down for sports jiu-jitsu. But because we were rolling at such a high intensity, and he was so clean with his technique and so good, what I didn't understand is this technique, I was putting too much power on this technique. And all of a sudden I'm like, I had lost the fact that it is a martial art. And I had learned some pretty crazy shit, right? And one of them was this particular move. And and I don't do it anymore. I do a version of it.
Okay. Which move was it?
Well, for the people on the video, I can quickly show, or
No, just try to describe.
so it's
my sake.
it's basically it's basically it's basically the strike to the brainstem. So it's how I put people in guillotines, especially when they're going for my leg. So when they're going for leg lock attacks, I just come down here and I ice cream scoop the back of your head, right? But because I was so used to doing it a particular way and a particular width, I was hitting the brainstem way too hard and causing concussions,
Wow. Okay.
right? And it's something that I'm absolutely 100% glad I know how to do because I've used it for real in fights. And it will drop people quickly, right? But I should not be doing it in jiu-jitsu, right? I shouldn't be doing that in jiu-jitsu. And I forgot how much power I had. I lost that responsibility of the whole, Spider-Man with great, power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that with jiu-jitsu, it's like there is this is why jiu-jitsu gets watered down.
Right.
And why this whole saying of like, oh, it's too lethal for the mat, right? There's shit that's too lethal for the mat.
Yeah.
There is.
So this is where your expertise comes in, because how do you train for it then? I mean, if every time you do it on somebody, but because the only way to prove that it works is actually to just do it and knock somebody out, right?
Yeah.
So how do you practice it safely?
So you practice it safely by just doing it not on the brainstem.
Oh.
So this is part of what I'm doing with jiu-jitsu. So when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, when I'm rolling, and I don't care whatever someone else is doing, right? And we're rolling, and some days I'm like, okay, I'm in full sport jiu-jitsu mode, and I want to go for some taps and some fancy shit, right? And I want to keep it current in my brain. I'll do it. I mean, lockdown and, electric chair, those are some of my bread and butter techniques, and I love doing them, right? But then other times, I'll roll, like even today, or pretty well whenever I roll, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking that when you're in this position and I've got this chin strap, I'm going to tear your trachea out of your neck if I want. What's the difference, right? This chin strap
Right.
versus me taking your trachea home in my back pocket, right? It's there. If I can do that, I can do this.
Right.
If I can throw you in a guillotine and choke you out, I can throw you in a guillotine
Twist your neck.
and break your neck,
Yeah.
right? So I can practice this because I have the knowledge of what's possible, and we can slow it down and we can practice it in a kata style technique where we practice the technique and we don't break each other's necks, right? And it's good to practice that jiu-jitsu. It's good to know, it's good to feel that how that whole mechanics works, so and so you accidentally don't do it as well. And I think that's the thing that people sometimes lose the responsibility of jiu-jitsu. And I learned how to do heel hooks, 30 years ago. I learned a heel hook before I learned an arm.
No, heel hooks were invented in the last 10 years, bro.
Exactly. There's videos of Helio doing heel hooks, a century almost ago, right? So, but they put it away. Why did they put it away? Because it was too freaking messy, right? It was too much for this thing, right? And then that part of jiu-jitsu got a little bit watered down, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is jiu-jitsu as a whole is unbelievable for self-defense. And we still need, and now you see things like Krav Maga popping up, right? And very popular. Some of the really good teachers of Krav Maga, there's a bunch out there that's silliness, right? But there's some out there that are highly legit. They're doing jiu-jitsu. They're absolutely 100% doing old school combat, Japanese-based, samurai freaking bread and butter,
Jiu-Jitsu.
3,500 years old jiu-jitsu. They're kicking, they're punching, they're rolling, they're breaking necks, they're deflecting, they're doing jiu-jitsu, right? And, saying that it's something else. It's not something else. There's a reason why it works, right? And so in jiu-jitsu, we just need to keep that respect level a little bit too, and that's what we've lost, but by just concentrating on sport jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
we're losing that, right? And at the expense of now there's this karate guy going to a tournament, and because he has a lot of attributes that he learned in a Japanese martial art that came from jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Karate came from jiu-jitsu,
And it does have a lot of grappling elements
and
to
it does have a lot of grappling elements. So here's a highly skilled practitioner going to a thing and not applying the rules of engagement and making a mockery of it, and then topping out a white belt, right? There's wrestlers going to jiu-jitsu tournaments. They've wrestled their whole lives. They're tapping out white belts. They're tapping out blue belts. They're tapping out these guys, right? They're not beginners, right? They've been studying this system, right? Argue about where it comes from. There's so much stuff out there, people arguing about where the system comes from, but it started in one place.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody knows it started in one place. And, obviously wrestling between people has around forever.
Right, thousands of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
If not longer.
Longer. I'm sure, it's just a natural thing. Apes do it.
Right.
Right. So, but as a very certain system with a system in place, similar to like your app, it's this system of learning these progressions and building off of these progressions, right? I mean, the way I learned jiu-jitsu was, and I learned the Japanese jiu-jitsu first, right? Learned it primarily for working in nightclubs, learned it primarily for fighting, and it worked really well.
Yeah. So what was it like the first time you learned about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Did you think, oh, it's just the same, or did you?
So let me tell you the first time I learned about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So was working at this nightclub. Someone was passing out flyers. I saw this flyer. It said Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I heard about this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? So I called up my instructor. I'm like, hey, there's this tournament. He's like, oh, fuck, tournaments are bad news, and there's rules, and we don't believe in rules of engagement, and it's not the real thing, and combat only lives on the street, and certain comic book cliches are going to follow martial arts. It's just what it does.
Right.
And that was comic book clicheism at its finest, right? Well, to me, I'm thinking, well, there's got to be more to it than me just, I want to know, like, we did this in class, it's a tournament, So my buddy Derek and I, we're like, we're going to go.
Derek? Derek the...
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, you met Derek.
I met him. Yeah, the guy with the bicep.
The guy
trunk bicep.
Yeah, arm curling like 225.
Yeah, that guy. Okay.
Yeah. That move I showed in the beginning, he put a guy's head through a car door with that move. Way too much English on that chin pick, and they went flying through. We were working at a club called the Smoke and Mojo Room. It was on Boundary in Hastings, and he put the guy in the chin lock, threw him up. Way too much English on it. He was just way too hype. They both went flying out the front door. There was a parked car. Bam! The guy's head went right into the car.
I can totally
dented the door.
I can totally see Derek do it.
Yeah, dented the door. The guy went to the hospital. Right? I don't know what happened to the car. I think Camille had to pay insurance on the car, deductible on the car.
We're going to continue with the story. So you and Derek pulled up to the...
So Derek and I, Derek and I were like, jiu-jitsu tournament. What I think it was um maybe it was like 1999 maybe or something like that. And I can look because I still I got the trophy at home. But anyways, so anyways, we're looking at this. Okay, yeah, just okay, all right. Well, our instructor didn't want us to do it. Well, whatever. We're grown men. We're gonna do it. So we work till 4 o'clock in the morning, right? We meet up at like 8 o'clock. We go to breakfast at Danny's. We're not going. We need like 3 or 4 hours sleep, right? We get there. We're like, we go in. We're like, yeah, we want to sign up for the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu thing. The guy's like, oh, well, show us your uniforms. We got to check them out. So we pull out our uniforms. He's like, these aren't Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu uniforms. And I know, and so I'm like, well, you got this patch on the back and all this stuff, right? They were black gis, and we had more or less this on our back, but in like Mortal Kombat 80s freaking glory, right? Bedazzly shit on. Okay, so we go back to the car, whip out my knife. We literally cut the patches off our gis. Okay, now they're basically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gis. They're black. It's okay in that tournament. Right. We I don't know, had like weird, I think I had a green belt with some weird thing or whatever. They let the weird belt thing go. They didn't really care about that. Right. Now we're in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament.
Because you guys would still be entering the white belt division, or how was the?
We were entering the white belt division.
Okay.
The beginner to
Right.
the white to, yeah, there was 3 divisions then, right? There was white to blue, and then purple, and then there was no other purple belts in Canada.
Back in the day, there were probably like.
The purple belt was the highest rank in Canada.
Okay, yeah, because that was 1999, yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, so we entered against people that could be, a blue belt. Right. So we go in there. It's a tournament, right? We read over the rules quickly. Fun. So, first thing, go in there now and lock up with this kid, boom, Tomonagi, throw him into the judge's table. Oh, fuck. Okay, so calm down, right? Heart's racing, right? Then throw him and then get him on the ground and just lock him up in a choke and just choke the shit out of him.
Cross collar.
Cross collar, right? Cross collar, knee on belly choke. Full on Japanese jiu-jitsu, old school grappling, right? So won my first few matches, right? Derek won a first few matches. Then I fight. Yeah, then I'm fighting for. Then Derek, I think, lost a match, or no, he didn't lose a match. And then I think Derek and I were going to fight, and I said no. So Derek fought this guy, lost, right? So now we're all in the final, right? So Derek had basically just like he did that chin lock, he did a bunch of stuff. I did a arm lock on someone, a standing arm bar on a guy, and I think it was Marco Soras at the time. Someone was screaming from the things, "Fuck yeah, it's not jiu-jitsu!" Right? Whatever. I think I ended up foot sweeping the kid out of that and winning on points. Then I get to then Derek fights, he loses. Then I fight that kid, right? We're fighting. I hit the Tomonagi on him, right? But as I throw him, I landed on my back, and then he landed next to me. They gave him 2 points because my feet were off the ground. So they counted that as a takedown for him. So he gets the feet on the ground. I come out, boom. He puts me in guard. And I'm like, the only way I know how to escape guard at this point was is just elbows in the face or the can opener. The can opener was my bread and butter guard pass. Can opener, chin to sternum, right? opens up the legs or breaks his neck or does bad things. Start to do the can opener. Ah! See, nah. Everyone's screaming, that's illegal. Oh, let it go. Okay, didn't know that. Didn't know that was not illegal in tournaments, right? So there I was in the guard, no way out, lost on points, got second place in my very first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament, not knowing what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was, right? Then someone comes over and talks to me and says, hey, that was great. We talked, why don't you come to my school and this and that. So again, I'm going to try it out. Derek lived close to there, so Derek went to the school first, and he says, yeah, it's pretty cool. Come. So I went over there, and I started training with them. I started tapping people out with foot locks and leg locks and heel hooks and all this stuff, because that was really big focus of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, was leg locks. And then they're like, okay, well, no one said anything. Well, they kept it going, everyone fighting. Then this kid got me in the guard. I couldn't escape. I was like, okay, there's more to this. I got to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And then I started learning that this earlier system that I had learned was great. It was like having a gun, but not being good at aiming, right? Like my submissions were based on, being at the right place at the right time. And it was easy with street fighting or working in nightclubs, because when people are using aggression on you, there's only a couple of reasons why fights start, and it almost always has something to do with aggression, right, and emotion.
Right.
So, as a bouncer, I have no emotion. I'm working, no emotion. I'm not angry at you. I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to protect these people from you, but I'm also trying to protect you from yourself.
Right.
Because you're being an idiot, right? You're drinking too much alcohol, right? So it's easy when you're getting out of control and you're coming at me for me to position myself, because I have no aggression. You're bringing me so much energy. But then all of a sudden in jiu-jitsu, that person put me in a guard. It's not using any aggression. He's having these transitions that are putting himself. He's learning how to control me. So then again, I'm losing control. So I'm like, that is the beautiful thing about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is they mastered this art of control.
Right.
Right? Whereas some of those other parts of Jiu-Jitsu were based on taking aggression away. Judo, taking aggression away. Right? When you're rolling with a high-level judo guy, as long as you have trained that, you can stump him if you're not trying to throw him. That's why hanging onto the belt in judo is illegal. It's not illegal in jiu-jitsu. So when I'm fighting against a guy that I can see is a high-level judo guy, and I start hanging off his belt and I'm taking away his hips, right? It's hard for him. I'm not giving him any energy, right? And that's like when we were rolling and you're coming in and I'm coming over top of you and I'm just like going wet noodle on you, right? I'm just like, it's so hard to now take away my energy because I'm just drooping,
Right.
right? When I'm getting the guillotine on and I got the guillotine and now I got to come over and slap that thing on, right? Then I'm giving you energy. That's what, you're like, sometimes you're waiting for, right? You're waiting for the person to give you energy so you can escape. You're waiting for the person to pull that arm bar, that arm out so you can do the triangle choke, right?
Right.
But the whole key there is how to do that when they're not giving you energy,
Right.
right? And that's the beautiful thing about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And that's the thing that I fell in love with,
Nice.
right? And that's why I kept going with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I did Japanese Jiu-Jitsu until that just became too hard on my body. And then
It's even harder.
it's harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So now I want to bring the conversation back to, because we're going pretty long, right? Because,
Yeah.
we can talk about jiu-jitsu forever. That's the thing about these podcasts. especially we're good friends.
Well, that's an important
Yeah.
message, though.
Yeah, but I do feel like so because that's great. The message is so good because we want to encourage more people to do jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
So perhaps people that's already in their 40s or 50s that they might have stopped doing jiu-jitsu because of various injuries or issues, right? So what are some of the actionable things they should be thinking of? Because you have your own experience to draw
Yeah.
from, right? How can they safely get back into training jiu-jitsu? How should their mindset change and how should their self-discipline and practice change?
So I know someone recently that really wanted to do judo, and so I encouraged them. I was a parent at judo, right? And I'm like, yeah, do judo, just great. So they went into judo. Within a class, they had huge pain in their shoulders, and they were unable to do the things that they wanted to do for almost a month, just from one class.
Yeah.
So one of the problems is, one, if we want to do something like judo or jiu-jitsu, right? If we want to do all of a sudden a combat martial art like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you want to do it and you want to start competing, you want to go to it and you go to a sports school, is you have to know your limitations. So if you're a person that has been inactive your whole entire life, you have to get active. You have to train for it. You can't take this passive approach to fitness. This passive approach that doing jiu-jitsu is going to make me fit. There's that message out there. And I strongly disagree with it. There's that message out there that people are shooting videos, jiu-jitsu after 40, the magic techniques for jiu-jitsu out of 40. That's getting into some snake oil bullshit. There's no magic technique that I now have to do because I'm 40 years old. No, there's no jiu-jitsu after 40. There's jiu-jitsu. I have to be physically fit. If I'm not, I'm going to be into a world of hurt. I have to have mobility in my joints. I have to be able to roll around. When we were talking earlier with Jason, I think I was saying for mobility, you want to go to a school that starts you off slow. You want to go to a school that has a beginner program, that do forward rolls, that do break falls, that do all these basic moves that a lot of people have gotten away from, right? Because these are conditioning your body, right? Learning rubber guard is not conditioning your body. Learning rubber guard when you're 20 years old, right, and you've been a water polo player since you were a child is nothing. It's going to be fine. You're going to be okay, right? Until you get an injury.
Right.
Okay? And in a lot of styles of jiu-jitsu, how many older people do you see doing them? Right? In some of these new sort of more specialized styles of jiu-jitsu where we're wrapping our body parts around each other and stuff. I don't see a lot of older people doing that, right? I see a lot of older people doing conventional Brazilian jiu-jitsu and sticking to the basics. And that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
You can't worry about what the kids are doing.
Right, because they have different set of goals, they have different things,
Different bodies.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to realize that you're not going to turn into that person. Right? You're not, I am never, although I did submit someone just recently using rubber guard.
What did you go with? Did you do a go-go plata or something?
I did. Because I love throwing a lot of omoplata style moves.
Yeah.
Right? And I did an armbar out of rubber guard too.
Nice.
And I still do that. Because if you break it down really close, it's actually really similar to the very first armbar that people would do, right? Just recently we had a coral belt train with us, and he showed us the evolution of jiu-jitsu. So he showed us how jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the evolution of Brazilian, how it happened. So it happened by, being in someone's guard and somebody doing a fist choke. Then they realized if they got a high guard and put the leg over the shoulder and poked up, then they could get the armbar. And then there was all these evolutions where he actually broke 40 years of jiu-jitsu evolution down into showing us with names of who was the first person that started doing this. Well, then we countered him. Then this school from this town came, and these guys,
Dude,
all of a
that's got to
sudden,
be such a cool experience.
yeah,
Eh, Jay?
these guys killed us because all of a sudden they did this. So we took that home, and then we found a counter for it. Then through that counter, we realized if we underhooked the leg, we could get the sweep. Then we got the armbar. Then we got this. Then we got that. Right? And it was like these moves were there. You know, there's pictures of old judo guys doing foot locks and rubber guard and all kinds of cool shit 50 years ago, right? But they didn't come and teach this, right? There was this natural progression where people knew that certain moves
Yeah.
were out there,
Yeah.
and then it was these transitions that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came up with,
Yeah, that's-
and still come up with to this very day.
Yeah,
You
that-
got, like, I
that's-
see this stuff that these guys are doing, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's why I think it's good to bring it back to the tradition, history, and respect once in a while, because I think it's swinging too far to the other side now.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people are like, no, you know, all that kind of you guys are just building cults and creating myth. That's not true. I'm like, there's certain elements of that, but it's also good to not be so extreme about it.
There's
right?
the kung fu about plucking out your eyes.
Yeah.
Right? And now it's too deadly to teach to people. I'm not going to get onto it on camera, but that's legit.
I believe when you say it, I fucking believe
It's
it, bro.
legit. Trust me. You can pluck someone's eye out. You can hit them right here and watch their eye pop out of their head. Right? It's legit. Right? There's all these myths. But do most people know how to do that? Do most people teach that? No. Is it preferred that they don't? I don't know. I'm glad that I learned some of that stuff. I mean, it's saved my life. I've saved other people's lives. I get that Medal of Honor, right? From
That woman on commercials.
yes, from saving that
commercial, right?
woman from being murdered.
Yeah.
And not only did I use jiu-jitsu, right? But it was just so easy for me. Right? I'm in my flip-flops. I'm in my freaking board shorts with the minions on me that I got for Father's Day, right? And I'm running. I'm seeing this guy beating this woman to death, and I'm yelling at him. And as soon as I get him, he runs. He gets off or he runs. And then I just catch up to him, and it's just like, pop, boom, you're on the ground. I pin you on the ground. This other guy that was yelling at him from the alley, but the guy didn't, for some reason, run. And that guy didn't, he just yelled. He was just yelling like, stop beating her, right? Then went to go punch that guy in the head. And I grabbed that guy's fist and I kicked his legs out from under him, set him down, and I said, sit on his fucking legs. Just sit on his legs. Don't get yourself into trouble. It's okay. We have this under control. And I held him. I talked to him.
So you saved two
Yeah,
people that
calmed him down, right? That guy got a Medal of Honor, but he never showed up to claim it.
because he knew the truth.
He knew the truth. he threw up after. It was a bad. He moved. He had a nice house. He sold his house and he moved. He moved out of the neighborhood.
Oh wow.
It was too much for him, right? And the whole thing. Oh, wait a minute. But I use jiu-jitsu. That's only good for the mat. That's not good for saving people's lives. I was calm. I knew techniques, right? We get into like this could go on for another 2 hours, but we get into the whole difference between tactics and techniques. Tactics is how I use the technique. I use the technique. My tactic for sport jiu-jitsu is way different than my tactic for the street.
Right.
My tactic for sport jiu-jitsu is flow, survive, control, submit, right? My tactic for the street or for MMA is inflict damage, control, inflict damage, and the fight. In that case, my technique was using a foot sweep, a control, a lock, and being calm, right?
Yeah.
Being calm. When the police arrived, there was a guy drinking coffee at the Starbucks, and he looks at me and he's like, hey, where's your backup? And I looked up and I'm like, I'm a civilian. And he's like, I'll call it in. I still to this very day don't exactly know who he was, but he called it in. Within seconds, there was SUVs everywhere. This big black dude with a Wu-Tang shirt and a gun out of a movie jumps out of the SUV, and he's like, I started to get up, and he's like, stay there. And I'm like, he goes, I'm just gonna watch. Just gonna make sure you're safe. And so he just stood there. And I'm just sitting there. What the fuck? What am I doing? And there's like SUV, big, huge black dude with a gun, a Wu-Tang shirt, right? Looked like a rash guard, right? And I was like, I don't know what's going on here. So I just stayed. Car pulls up, guy gets out, says, hey, can you just stay where you are? And I'm like, okay. Puts on his, I guess his puncture-proof gloves and starts going through the pockets, you know, making sure that there's no weapons, no needles, no nothing. And then he's like, and then he looks at me and he's like, I'm going to put the cuffs on. And I'm like, okay. You know, he puts the cuffs on. And then I'm like, can I get his change? Because he spilt his change. I want to get his change for him. So I got his change and I just put it in his pocket and walked away. And it was, that was jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
right? You know?
Cool.
Not nothing to do with, you know, me trying to do a goga plata on the guy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's got to be a very intense experience, you know. But because jiu-jitsu teaches us to stay so calm under stress, right?
Yeah.
Especially with you, your experience, right?
Well,
So that was like a your heart rate probably barely elevated.
Here's another story coming out of Science World with the boys.
Yeah, I remember you posting about that one. Yeah.
And I got the boys. They're like, maybe they're like 6 years old. They're toddlers, but they're kind of getting the, you know, the rhythm, right? And we're coming out of Science World. My wife is rummaging through her purse and down in the parking lot for her cell phone or something. And I get to the minivan and I click unlock. And the lock goes, tsh. And you know that thing that just triggers your brain? Like, this is wrong. Why didn't the door just lock? Right? So I look open, the door opens up. Park car here. Minivan door opens up. Man jumps out of the car. So somehow, probably, you know, going to Science World, I left the car unlocked. I'm guessing that's what happened, right? Or I hit the button in my pocket. Who knows what? It was in the keys were in my wife's purse. Maybe it unlocked. Who knows, right? You're getting out of Science World. I mean, Jiu-Jitsu doesn't prepare you for Science World with children. Right? And so there I am with the boys. This guy gets out of the car and he just comes like right at me. And I just take Marco, put him around the back, say, protect Carlo, go to the back. And just as I did that, the guy's right on top of me, right? I scoop kind of an underhook. I pull him forward. I kick the door shut. And then I literally just picked him up. I don't even know where it came from. I just scooped under him and I just did it like a kataguruma, right? Fireman's carry. Picked him up and then I went and I threw him. But then as I threw him, I grabbed his head and I just let him down as soft as I can. Boom. And then I put my foot on his throat. Just then this car just started screeching. The van opens up. City of Vancouver workers. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing to that guy? Here I am. You know, it's October or something, right? I got my hoodie on, got a backpack on. I have my foot on someone's throat, right? And I look at the guys and I said, hey, he just jumped out of my car. Go get my kids. Call 911. So I'm holding the guy down. And then I've like took my foot off his neck and I'm like, get on your knees, put your hands behind your back. And he did. He complied.
Oh yeah, he's done at that point. He wasn't about to cause you any more trouble.
Right? Then he started to break down. Right? He started to break down, started to cry. And he started to tell me he didn't want to be there. I don't want to be this person. I'm sorry. I wouldn't have hurt you. I wouldn't have hurt your boys. I was looking for change in your car, albeit like 6'3". I mean, when we were in front, I was at his shoulder, right? I was looking for change. I wasn't going to steal anything worth of value. I just wanted enough for some food, right? Maybe drugs. I don't know. This is the story he told me. And I looked at him. I just recently lost a loved one to an overdose. So I'm looking at him and I'm like, and I'm conflicted now. I'm like, you just committed a crime, right? I don't know if you're telling the truth, right? So I started talking to him and I just said, hey, I could have hurt you. You could have been really hurt there, right? But I didn't hurt you. And I don't want to hurt you. I want you to get better, right? How can I help you, right? And I'm like thinking to myself, is going to jail going to help him? No, it's not going to help him at all. And then I just looked at him and I said, I might be extremely foolish right now, but I'm going to just say there's help out there for you. I know there's help out there for you. You know there's help out for you. Promise me that you will try to talk to somebody, that you will try to get help. Promise me that. And he looked me straight in the eyes and he said, I promise. I said, okay, go. And I let him go. Right? Later on, I was extremely conflicted about my decision. I was really upset. The adrenaline drops, all kinds of crazy stuff. When I walked back, right, to the Vancouver city workers on the phone with 911, the police, they're like, oh, where is he? And I said, oh, he escaped. And the guy looked at me and he's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, so then I talked to 911 and let it go and took the kids to 7-Eleven for a Slurpee. But it was a really profound evolution for me. When we talk about this, going from warrior all the way to teacher to healer, right? I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he just went and did someone else. But there was something in that moment where
But you took a chance, right?
I took a chance.
Because what's the alternative? He's gonna go to jail. They're gonna let him out. Then it's still the same thing, right? But
All he ever knows,
just by you showing him a bit of kindness,
a bit of kindness,
and understanding,
right?
and compassion,
Yeah.
that could have been the
It
catalyst
might be.
that was needed.
It might
right?
be, and it might not.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. But the thing was, I mean, the reason why I believed him is because he wasn't aggressive. I don't know if he was aggressive. I can't really say that he wasn't, but I feel that he wasn't aggressive. Right? I feel that, I mean, at the same time, could the average person take a 6'3" person and kataguruma them over top of them and set them down gently?
Definitely.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Right? But maybe that happened for a reason. Right? But it's not going to do me any good. I mean, the other one, the guy did go to prison, right? That woman was never the same. She had to have like a whole whack of surgeries to repair her face.
And wow.
She would have died
Yeah.
soon. She almost died. She was in critical care for a long time, right? That's different, right? But again, I didn't need to beat that guy up. That's not what jiu-jitsu is about, right? Just like I don't believe jiu-jitsu is about going to tournaments and seeing if you can break someone's foot. I don't know, and that's a part of sport jiu-jitsu I'm not really too happy about, right? I mean, just going there to try to hurt people, whatever.
Yeah. But the truth is, everybody has their own path they have to
Yeah.
walk, right? So yeah, so it was great, hearing about everything about you and what your journey with jiu-jitsu is like, right? So I know we wanted to really get into more about how other people who are, a bit older can safely go into jiu-jitsu. But, I think the most important thing is they have to figure it out. They have to
I mean,
understand. They have to take personal responsibility
yeah,
to do that,
in a nutshell, you have to go to a school that's going to look after you.
Right.
Right. I often say this. It's really easy to find people to beat you up. It's hard to find people that are going to lift you up.
Yeah.
Right. So go to a really good school. Go to a school that won't beat you up. Go to a school that has a beginner's program. You can roll with black belts. I roll with white belts all the time. I let white belts beat me up. Right? I let them beat the crap out of me, man. I let them take my back. I let them get on top of me, right? Because that's part of it, right? But you have to go to a school that does that. And I think people go to the wrong schools. I think you have to learn the style. I think, ultimately, you need to go to a place that has other old people. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
You can't expect to go into a gym of a bunch of kids that are wanting to do jiu-jitsu competitions for a living, wanting to do MMA, and thinking that that's going to be okay. There might be a few people out there that can do that, but no, that's not where you go. Where you want to go.
Right.
You want to go to a school that is going to take care of you, is going to nurture you, is going to let you learn jiu-jitsu,
Right.
so that you can temper your body going forward. You can, you have to forge,
Yeah.
right, yourself, right?
And commit to getting fit, right?
Commit.
Because I think I changed my mind on that too. When I was younger, right? Remember, it's always like we used to laugh at people say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get in shape first and then I'll do jiu-jitsu. I used to laugh at those people. They used to be like, no, you don't wait until you get in shape. You just do jiu-jitsu to get in shape. I changed my mind on that now. I'm like, hey, or at least do it concurrently.
Concurrently.
Yeah, at the very least.
Have expectations, right? Do jiu-jitsu, I do jiu-jitsu 3 days a week. That's enough. That's enough, right? Because I need 2 days a week to 3 days a week to prepare for doing jiu-jitsu 3 days a week. I need to train my body. I need to be fit.
Recovery.
I need recovery. I need, all the other things.
Yeah, so why don't we end the podcast by you telling us what your schedule is right now, right? On the days you do jiu-jitsu, right? What is the intensity level you look for on the days that you're actually doing other training, like the clubs and whatever, right?
So Monday,
what's
Monday,
happening
Wednesday,
there?
Friday are my jiu-jitsu days. Intensity varies. So the one beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, and I think that this is something that people that only do jiu-jitsu can understand, is I call it the warrior hormone, is that you don't know what's there. Your fight or flight is in full force. I could go to jiu-jitsu one day and it's a room full of, killers. We all showed up at the same day. Oh well, we're gonna fight. We're gonna go hard, right? We're gonna go hard, right? I could go to jiu-jitsu one day, and there's professor and a whole bunch of white belts. Okay, cool. That's awesome too. Now I can work some stuff that I wanted to work, and I can nurture and I can teach, and I can leave feeling good. I got to do jiu-jitsu the other day with this person who has autism, and it was beautiful. It was amazing for me, right? And we were rolling, and he was going for arm bars and going for subs, and it was amazing, right? And that was great. I mean, I will get more out of that than out of tapping another black belt out, right? Or a purple belt out, or whatever. I mean, I got more out of getting choked out a month ago by a much smaller purple belt doing doing in the gi because I was not paying attention, right? And he wrapped the gi around my neck and started the lawnmower.
Yeah, man.
And he went off the ball. Right? And I paid for it. And it was amazing, right? It was amazing, right? So find your school. Go to a bunch of schools. They're not all the same, not all styles. No one's gonna compare. I'm not gonna say one school is better than others, right? Nothing like that.
Yeah, find the best fit for you.
You got to find the best fit for you, and you have to understand that if you don't allow yourself to grow into it, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, and on the days you're on the jiu-jitsu, what type of workouts or do you focus on?
I do a mostly kettlebell-based workouts. So it's based on a sports style of kettlebell training, which mimics martial arts really well. So I do a kettlebell, and I really work on this kind of, it's a bit of a buzzword, but I work on metabolic style workouts. So I am working at a very high pace. So I'm not taking rest breaks. I'm working, 6 minutes nonstop, as fast as I can, as hard as I can. And then I'll take a minute off just to calm down a little bit. And then I'll do it all over again. And I find that's the best training for my age group because it enables me to keep my fitness to a level that is beyond what I need in jiu-jitsu,
Right.
right? And my breathing too. Breathing can go on forever, but breathing is one of the most important aspects of jiu-jitsu that is not taught. So the things that are not taught in jiu-jitsu are the fact that if you look at the fundamentals of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and you take like Hoist Gracie or Hickson Gracie, these guys are full-on yogis, right? They can bend themselves into pretzels. They know all the breathing techniques. That was lost. That wasn't taught. They didn't really teach it a lot. I think they do maybe a bit more than most, but it was completely lost. And I was definitely not taught that style either, right?
I was never taught that.
Yeah. So I had to find that. And then went out and I found that style, right? I found that way of living, that way of breathing, that way of working out, right? And, I have asthma and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's really important, right? But also,
So the breathing training is separate from the kettlebell training, or
yeah,
do you kind of
no, breathing.
Incorporate them into the
I incorporated when I'm doing jiu-jitsu. You probably heard me when I was doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? So when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, I'm like, I'm just keeping that tempo. Hey, I'm still alive, calm, thinking about it. Right? When I'm working out, same things, thinking about it, right? Breathing, I want my cadence of my breath to not have anything to do with the cadence of my heart. So if I'm on my Aerodyne, I do it on the Aerodyne all the time. You taught me the Aerodyne.
Oh, great.
Yeah, remember?
Yeah, it is.
Back when a long time ago when you were just first learning how to be a personal trainer.
Yeah, it was
Right?
such a long time ago.
And
now
so-
I'm retired from personal training.
Yeah.
Man,
So for my Aerodyne, as hard as I can. Looking at my heart rate, get my heart rate as fast as I can go. Keep my breathing exactly the same, right? And so I'm practicing it all the time, all the time. Taking a walk, all the time. Right?
Sweet. Nice, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And just like that.
Probably have to edit a bunch of that out.
No, man, I don't edit.
Really?
Yeah, man.
No one's gonna listen to that whole
Dude,
rambly
I will.
ass thing.
That's a cool thing about this podcast, right, guys? That's why we deserve a 5-star review, because unfiltered, unedited, and also unorganized.
And you know what the thing is that this, try not to take more time. This spills into a theory that I really love. And there's political things behind the word now, but I don't believe that. I believe in this theory of being a gray man. So being a person that has extraordinary skills.
Isn't it weird how that is becoming political?
Yeah.
It's so weird to me.
When I'm walking down the street, right, you know, I can help, right? And I don't have to, you know, I have these skills that I can help. And I feel like that's really important. And it's important to be an average person. I'm an average person who's also a second degree black belt in jiu-jitsu and been training martial arts for, you know, almost 40 years, right? Knives, guns, all kinds of fun stuff, right? But I'm still just that guy who's an environmental consultant by trade and a father, but I can also be all these other things, right? I can also have these skills, right? Like you say, the equalizer, right? We could, you know, you can have those skills, right? I can help.
Yeah.
That's the way I help.
Yeah.
And I think people have to, that's not the mentality of sport jiu-jitsu, unfortunately, right? Or MMA and stuff, but that's the Bushido behind it, right? And I think that that's a little bit deeper than most people go. But I think, again, I think that naturally happens with age. I think you naturally, you know, you don't see yourself as that person, you know, that can just come on a Sunday morning and give a, you know, a athlete like yourself, you know, a roll.
An ass whooping, that's what I call it.
Well, I'm 52 years old, right? And it's fun to do that, right? I watch these videos of these kids doing jiu-jitsu, and I think, oh, I can't do that. I see these kids in tournaments
That is true.
kicking these ass and doing all these moves, and I think, holy shit, I can't do that. They're going to kick my ass. I roll with them, and I have to try not to hurt them. And I'm like,
Something is not making sense here, right?
right? And I think that that's also getting away from the fundamentals.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we'll have to get you back for another episode. Thank you, brother.
Oh,
Just
no,
like that.
no,
We're
stiff.
out.